Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Sean Brodrick, senior editor at WeissRatings.com. He's speaking to us from Florida. Just returned from a trip to Alaska that sounds like it was very interesting. Welcome back to the show, Sean.
Thanks for having me on.
So where did you jet off to?
Well, first into Anchorage, and then from there we took a small plane out to Sand Point, I believe it's called, which is one island, and then a helicopter ride to the exploration camp, which is on UGA Island. UGA is the 20th largest island in the United States. It's in the Aleutian Islands, part of that chain. Volcanic activity there millions of years ago has just made the place a mineral paradise. Now it's all covered by thick green vegetation, but, they're slowly scraping away. They have multiple drills out there, and they may be on the track of something really, really big. Now, it is in the Aleutian Islands. People might think, well, how are you going to get ore from the Aleutian Islands? Actually, there have been operations there in the past. You just take it out by boat. It's actually been operated quite successfully before. So, as the old saying goes, the best place to look for a gold mine is in an old gold mine. Well, UGA Island is where Alaska's first underground gold mine, the Apollo mine, actually was located. And that has some real potential. I mean, they're just starting now. They had a drill program that just concluded, and so reports from that are starting to come in. Good results so far, not spectacular ones, but they have a lot more results to come in. We'll just have to see what actually works out.
What's gold doing now, and is it encouraging for the miners?
Well, it's encouraging for anyone who wants to pick them up cheap, right? I mean, and we are seeing gold hold 1,800, even though it keeps dipping down below it. It gets right back above it by the end of the day. That shows some real interest there. I think that there's many combination of things, which you and I have talked about before. We don't need to go into them at length, but the current environment for gold, while there are dips in the short term, those seem to be buying opportunities. The longer term trend is up, and the second half of the year should be a good one for gold.
Do you fear that the stock market is topping out?
Well, I'm certainly hedging my bet on that because I don't know. And but let's say the market does top out due to a combination of fears about the Fed tightening, and also fears about what inflation would do, and also fears about the spread of the Delta 9 variant of the COVID vaccine, of the COVID virus. Well, if that does happen, then you have to think about where support could be down below. I'm not sure about that. However, there's also plenty of things to support the market. So what we've seen recently, and in fact what we just saw, is that there's higher volume on the sell-off days, but the S&P 500, which is the basic big leading index, that when it gets down to the 50-day moving average, that test of the 50-day moving average is bought. It uses that as support, and it lunges higher again. This has been going on since May, where there's more bearish volume, and yet the S&P 500 keeps going higher. At some point, someone's going to be wrong. Either bearish volume will get lower, or the S&P 500 will break support. We're in kind of a gray zone right now where it's very hard to say what's going to happen in the short term. I think that it should be a good year for the market anyway, but short term, it's very, very hard to predict exactly where it's going to go.
The Dow bouncing back today, something fierce after a couple of rough days. Is that, does that mean that the basics are still very popular, especially with inflation running officially at over 5%?
Well, it means people see bargains on a pullback. Now, we are going to have more bad news, probably. I mean, the spread of the Delta 9 variant, which is more contagious, means that more and more people are going to end up with that, and those that haven't been vaccinated are going to end up in the hospital, so we're probably going to see more bad news. However, as I put in an issue that I sent to subscribers on Monday, I don't believe there's an appetite for shutting everything down in the U.S. again. I think things would have to get very, very bad for the U.S. to shut down and for individual states to shut down. And about half of Americans have both shots. Now, that doesn't mean that you won't get the virus. It means you won't go to the hospital. Or I should say that's the odds. It really improves your odds of having a mild case and no case at all. You can still get the virus, much like measles. You and I probably carry the measles virus around with us, but because we had shots when we were younger, it doesn't affect us. So, the more people have shots, the better off they are. I'm sick of arguing with people about this. People can believe what they want. But what the market has been pricing in is higher risk that there's going to be some kind of bad news about COVID. That's one of the things it's pricing in. I think that the bad news they are potentially pricing in is another shutdown, and I don't think we're going to have that. So I think that the fears are misplaced. My reasons for thinking the fears are misplaced would be different from someone who thinks the whole thing is a hoax. So take it however you want it. But my point is, it's probably going to be more bad news on that, more bad news on inflation, more bad news on the Fed tightening, and so because of that, we aren't out of the woods in the market yet.
Senator Schumer is proposing legal federal pot. Do you think it has any chance of going through?
That's not going through this year. They've already counted the votes. He says he doesn't have the votes. So no, thanks to the Republicans. I believe that Mitch McConnell's keeping his big yap shut. He's leaving it to Charles Grassley to say that, no, we shouldn't do this. Well, why not? You know, I mean, should we lock people up in jail for smoking a weed? That's just ridiculous. There's a lot of good reasons to legalize, tax revenue being one of them. And so, at least on a state-by-state level, that'll still continue. In fact, we just have a bunch of states, in fact, legalize marijuana just for that reason. They need the tax revenue. We aren't going to see it on a federal level this year, probably, and so we just have to get used to that. The cannabis stocks are in a really bad environment right now. We've seen a bunch of them go down. They seem to get hurt more than the broad market, which is saying something lately. Until that changes, you know, you're just going to want to hold on to your firepower. However, around this time last year, we saw cannabis stocks, which had been beaten down, enter a big rally. If there's seasonality in this thing, and there might be, in fact, there probably is, we're about to see a big rally in cannabis stocks. So I think what people should be doing is making their shopping lists, seeing what bargains they think they might want to buy, because the time to buy those bargains in cannabis stocks is probably pretty close.
We'll have more with Sean Brodrick right after this.
Engineer Gold Mines is focused on the exploration and development of the historic high-grade Engineer Gold Mine situated 32 kilometers southwest of Atlin, British Columbia. Engineer Gold Mines is fully permitted for surface and underground exploration with the drill program now underway. Engineer Gold Mines Limited trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol EAU. For more information, please visit us at engineergoldmines.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Sean Brodrick. Is anything happening in the uranium market?
Well, it's gone into a coma. I mean, hey, I own uranium stocks. I have uranium stocks in my portfolios. I wish things were moving faster than they are. Now, I've also heard a lot of people say it's poised for a rally as well. One reason being the funds that own uranium stocks have a lot of cash on hand, which they're going to have to deploy sooner or later. For that reason alone, it could be quite bullish for uranium stocks. We've all been waiting for news to be the mover in the uranium space, and bullish news has come in about how the Biden administration is going to, treat the uranium industry, about more building of new power plants, about extensions on existing power plants, which is very important. We're seeing that right here in the U.S. But when you come down to it, what you really need is you need more buyers and sellers. At this time, those two things seem to be in balance. There seem to be about as many buyers as sellers. We need to have more buyers. I think the longer-term story for uranium and uranium stocks is undeniable. I believe that there's much higher prices ahead. But apparently it's up to the market as to when that actually happens.
President Biden appears is going to appoint a head of the Justice Department who has launched antitrust actions in the past against some of the large tech companies. Is that going to change the way people invest?
I don't know. I think the large tech companies have more lobbyists than they have antitrust lawyers. That would be my guess. So I don't think it'll change things that much. Do they really have the political will in Washington, D.C. to break up Facebook or Google or anything like that? I don't think they do. Now, one thing President Biden stated was he wants to put rules in place to protect smaller companies. They might get that done, and that's a great thing, because we have these big companies. Amazon is one that really gets my goat. That these big companies that act like monopolies. For example, Amazon finds a small company that is selling something on its website, making a tidy profit. Amazon outsources a very similar item to China, and through its huge monopoly power starts underselling the company that's selling through the Amazon website. They've done this over and over again. It's been pointed out. Some of the rules they want to put in place will protect the smaller companies. I think that would be a good thing. That might happen. I do not expect to see Google and Amazon and Facebook broken up. That's very, very unlikely.
Anything else we should be keeping a close eye on right now?
Well, rare earths continue to outperform. They continue to do very well, so people should keep an eye on that. This is, part of the electric car boom, that's for sure. There are other things to use rare earths for, but that's basically part of it. But the supply-demand squeeze there is just becoming more and more pronounced, especially with China making noises about how the West is so mean to it and stuff like that. So I expect to see more government investment, whether through loans or maybe funding of projects, stuff like that. I expect to see more of that here in North America, both the U.S. and Canada, and maybe Mexico too. So that's coming. And so I think people should keep an eye on rare earths, because our rare earth positions are doing well, and I expect them to do even better going forward.
How's oil doing right now?
Not well. Which is funny. All right, what happened is Friday, OPEC, basically they buckled to the UAE, which wanted higher production. OPEC said, okay, fine, higher production, and they're going to add 400,000 barrels per month, and it's going up to like 1.6, 1.8 million extra barrels per day by the end of next year. I can't remember. Anyway, it's really not that much. I mean, demand's supposed to rise more than that over the same time. So, but I guess there was too much bullishness built into the market, so all these oil stocks are selling off. I got knocked out of some positions, which I hate, but, sometimes that happens. So we'll just have to wait and see where things find their feet. I do think that the bottom will come sooner than later in oil and oil stocks, simply because of what we see going on around the globe. It's a bullish environment for energy. The thing that could derail it is is if we see another wave of the pandemic, whether it's due to Delta 9, whether it's due to some other variant, I don't know. But there is that potential. That could derail the economic recovery. I just think that the fears about another pandemic are a bit overblown. I know there are some countries that haven't had a good vaccination program. Australia comes to mind. But overall, we are starting to get a handle on this thing, which means that there should be increased economic activity, which means more demand for oil. So I think that despite the short-term problems in oil, the longer-term outlook is quite bullish, and so you can start making your shopping list there too.
Sean, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thanks very much for having me on.
My guest has been Sean Brodrick, Senior Editor at WeissRatings.com. If you have any questions for Sean or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@HowStreet.com, our YouTube channel, Talk Digital Network. Find us on Twitter @HowStreet. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.